time and space is not real. Like it's all, we kind of joke it's all an illusion, but it's a human limitation.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there it is. And that's just the three-dimensional view, right? Because there's multiple dimensions. When you get to the fourth dimension, there is no time. Time and space are actually one, and they're in unity. You know, and things like the wormholes and black holes, like those phenomenon that we can actually see and measure, like those are just singularities where time and space don't exist anymore.
I am so excited to introduce Ryan. He is my personal massage therapist, but we are going to talk about mental health as it relates to the physical body, not just in typical massage, but in all of the energy work around massage and how the body is this, you know, emotional, spiritual, energetic being. So I'm so excited to interview you today. Introduce yourself professionally, like your credentials and kind of who you are as a professional.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for having me, Chris. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. And yeah, you know, my story goes back to college days. I thought I was going to be a pharmacist, actually.
Okay.
I was going to almost made it to the College of Pharmacy, and this was in Wyoming. And Wyoming just kind of went against the grain of who I was as a person. You know, I'm all about the hippie, like, you know, like rainbows and butterflies, and like, hey, what's this cowboy boots and like dancing and rodeo nonsense? I don't know anything about this. So it was culture shift going in there, like a culture shock. And then going into that, I did find my own group that I could connect with, and that group I actually ended up trying out psychedelic medicine. Okay. In this case, it was the form psilocybin, so my journey began actually with a mushroom trip.
Okay.
And
was there mental health concern, like were you depressed, anxious, just kind of a midlife or early life kind of adjustment, like trying to figure out who you are?
Yeah, you know, that's funny you said that because I've never actually been asked that or reflected it in that manner. But in that case, I was lost in life. I did have some depression. My grades were down in school. I didn't know where I was going in what direction. And I was trying to find my people and I couldn't. So my lack of connection in my environment and my surroundings wasn't there. And so, you know, I would say I did come from that place going into that journey. Okay. So looking for some type of healing, some type of connection, some type of greater, higher guidance.
Yeah. And did you do prep work prior to, or was it kind of an impulsive decision?
This was more of an impulsive decision in a college setting, as you can imagine. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So there was no like ritual or ceremony or let's do some prep work into this. This was just we're going to go to Vita Vu Park and we're going to take some mushrooms and we're going to see what happens.
And I'll just stop right there just for the audience. It is all about embracing the journey, and I think this is a great story. There's just some contraindications. If you're on antidepressants or any other psychotropic medications, that's medications that go into your brain, you need to speak to a doctor before doing any kind of psychedelic medicine.
Absolutely.
So now that you know, boring stuff is, tell us about just the experience overall.
So the experience was great. It was a beautiful day. If you guys haven't been to Vita Vu, it's a beautiful park. It was a great way to connect with nature. And so anytime going forward after that, I always found nature to be my sanctuary. Nature is the place where I can relax, rejuvenate, let go. And if I do any sort of psychedelic journeying, I will do it in nature. And so this experience particularly pointed to me in my life path. And I basically just heard a voice and I couldn't identify who it was, where it came from. It just said, "You're on the wrong path." I was like, oh, okay. And
I didn't like this one anyway.
Yeah, thank you for affirming what I already know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Right.
So, basically, at that time, I had some friends growing up, even since kindergarten. This particular friend, he had a interest in a YouTube channel called Spirit Science. And this guy does a really good job of honing in on on the animation style around what is astral projection, what is chakras, what is your astral field, what is anything that's like spiritual related. He breaks it down with an animation. And very fun YouTube animations.
Okay, so I'll have to follow that.
100%.
Yeah.
I so recommend him. And I still recommend him for people starting out in their spiritual journey, because he just does a really good job breaking it down with visuals.
Yeah.
So at that time, just after that, he introduced me to him. I watched all these animations, and I'm like, wow, there's a whole other world to explore. Like, I'm more than just my physical body. All these things I was feeling on my psychedelic journey, like, these are all things that I can start to name now. Like, I know what it is that I'm feeling. And he kind of gave me verbiage to help me identify what I was feeling inside. And so after diving in there and finding out that nobody else around me there identified with that spiritual path, I looked around, and sure enough, UCCS actually had the program I was looking for, long story short.
Okay.
So I ended up going to UCCS and getting a health science degree.
Okay.
And so...
and were you able to learn in an academic setting some of the science behind energy work? Because I think I probably have a lot of followers that are just like, energy work is just spiritual. And they don't realize that there's a lot of actual science of the atoms and how, they produce energy, and how this field is has some distance from your physical body. Were you able to learn some of those things? In a college setting?
Oh, in a college setting, no.
Okay, it did not teach you those things.
It did not.
Okay.
I'm very grateful for that education, but they didn't teach the esoteric, the quantum physics aspects of our quantum self, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was more of this is how you do exercises and stretches and nutrition and like the third dimensional physical aspects of our being, which is very important, right? We do have to eat. We have to know what we're eating, what we're putting in our body, and all the stretches and exercises. That is important. We have to move our body. That's so important. So connecting with my body, like the education to help me connect with my body on the physical level was very well formed from. And I'm grateful for that for UCCS. Then fast forwarding, that's when I did massage school. And so college to massage therapy, I holler at them.
Yes. That's where I met you.
Okay. Yes. And just education there is just phenomenal.
And it gives you a license to touch, which is the big thing in kind of energy practitioners. If you don't have a license to touch, then it kind of gets complicated.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the license to touch is actually one of the main reasons why I took on massage therapy, because it's a broad, hands-on body work, and then any type of body work you can branch out into different directions: craniosacral, Thai massage, Reiki, all the things that you would like to do hands-on work. At least I have a foundation and a license. Yeah. So that's exactly, you hit it on the head. So it was an 11-month program. It was fantastic. And then from there, Reiki was my first energy modality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to us about Reiki. I think most people have heard the word, maybe not experienced it, but that's kind of a word that a lot of people associate with, that's energy work. So tell us just a little bit about the science of Reiki.
Yes, absolutely. So Reiki is broken down in Japanese from Rei is heaven, Ki is energy. So heaven, energy. What we're doing is we are conduits, we are channels, we are in a neutral space, bringing down this heaven energy, and we call that specific frequency of energy Reiki. This particular energy was brought to us by, hold on a second.
Yeah, the details of names are not
as
important as just like what, and I love what you just said, and I didn't even know the actual breakdown of the definition of the name Reiki. But we don't talk about this spiritual connection with something else. And in our culture, we've tried to really separate that. Even in more traditional modalities of a church, they it's more academic or learning, like this, these are the history of it, and this is what you should believe, without the actual, that there's actual energy between us and this entity.
We're 99% energy, and we don't even talk about it.
Right.
We're 1% matter and 99% energy. And like quantum physics says so. And it's like, and that's why I love bodywork, and it focuses, there's lots of things that come up in a session, right? Even when I think I'm just working on the three-dimensional human body, there's also other things at play, even in the background, in the client's processing, that I'm not even aware of as the practitioner.
Yeah.
So, I'd just be working on a rhomboid, and then all of a sudden an emotional release happens. And you're like, oh, I wasn't planning on it, but I'm just going to hold space. We're going to let this go through, and the rhomboid releases.
Now explain that. I don't know what rhomboid?
Yeah, okay. So rhomboid is the muscle. Yeah,
okay.
Rhomboid, the muscle.
The muscle rhomboid, okay.
The muscle rhomboid,
okay.
Yes.
Do people typically hold energy there or
Yes.
trauma there?
Yeah, think not necessarily in the rhomboid itself, but let's think about the organ that's in front of the rhomboid, which would be the heart. So what I find is that, the heart in the chakra sense is actually three-dimensional. When we look at a chakra, it expands in a three-dimensional circle around us. People think of it as just, I'll put my hand here, and it's just a vortex coming out this way, but it's a vortex of energy that comes from the back to the front and comes out both directions and comes in a field.
Yeah.
And we call that a toroidal field. So there's a whole toroidal field around your body, and then a field around each chakra. And so if that chakra gets blocked, a good example would be grief, actually. And so,
Yeah, I was going to say, most of my work has been because of this. Like, I'm unconsciously protecting my heart. The chakra is in pain, and I have to do a lot of, opening work.
Heart openers.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We have the forward shoulder posture, which we think of as desk jobs, but then also don't consider the emotional aspect.
Yeah.
There are people that are covering and, they're trying to protect, like you said. And so that I noticed that in their posture. I'm like, okay, this could be a sign here. And sure enough, that when that energy gets stuck in the heart, that can manifest in the front of the body or the back. And so what I'll notice is that, someone will come in for a session, I work on their back. The next session, that same spot I already worked out is already tight again. And I'm like, what happened here? Is there a pattern in your movement? Is it an emotional issue? And
almost everything is an emotional issue, and so this is why I wanted to talk to you about how this relates to mental health, right? And if I think oftentimes people are kind of grasping, like, what can I do to help myself? And they might go to an energy practitioner or go to massage, but if you don't go in with some sort of insight and intention, and then having some awareness of what just happened, like, oh, I released that, I've done enough self-work, I know what's happening, and then I can able to process that for a long period of time. But I think a lot of times, people go in and, well, I did a few sessions and they didn't fix it. I'm still depressed or I'm still anxious. And it could be 20 years of micro trauma or, 20 years of these stressors that you can only release a little bit at a time.
Exactly.
And so my goal in having these conversations is like that insight into, yes, energy work can be great. It's going to maximize if you go in with some insight, intention, and be working through those things so that you're not back at the same place the next time you go, right?
Exactly. It's so important, and it's something that it's something that I should talk about more in a self-care program. Like, do you do any meditations? I'm talking about stretches and exercises so you can strengthen these muscles and stretch these muscles to get posture back, but it's like, at the end of the day, if it's an emotional thing, tap into that center. And it's like, there have been many times where people come in with back pain, but it's not the pain that I can, as a practitioner, help alleviate, because it is an internal processing, right? It's something that the client themselves has to go through. And I can hold space for that process to unfold. And for example, Reiki is good for that. Reiki, I am just, sending energy and allowing whatever needs to happen with that energy in the person's body to unfold naturally, and that's great. And then another, so craniosacral work is the next one, and I'm careful in the way I say it because some people brush craniosacral off as woo-woo, just like Reiki, right? Woo-woo.
Yeah, well, we're gonna stay in this woo-woo space for a minute because, like you said, we're 99% energy, and
there you go.
Your emotions and your grief
Yes.
and your trauma get stuck in this energy, and it will manifest. I always talk about if you don't process your grief, process your trauma, it will manifest in physical symptoms.
Absolutely, I see it all the time. And so with craniosacral work, this is more very gentle work. We use around 5 grams of pressure, and that's just the weight of a nickel. And what we're doing is we're just, tuning into that space, allowing the fascia to naturally release. And what we find is that the fascia tends to hold a lot of our emotions, a lot of our memory. The body keeps the score, right? So the body will hold on to that pattern that happened in that previous event, and we're holding space to allow that event to unravel itself the way it's supposed to heal.
Yeah.
Right? And so craniosacral is another tool in my toolbox to hold space for the emotions to release, and amazing things have happened.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Absolutely. And have you been trained in the quantum? I know there's different techniques within that. I have personally seen a practitioner where he can tell me, like I can give the physical symptom, and I can say, I think this is related to, my husband, but I don't know. And then we can kind of he can test that energy and kind of really get to the root of what that emotional block is.
Yes. And that was part of what I was going to say with craniosacral is there's something called therapeutic imagery and dialogue.
Okay.
And so dialoguing, I can be that neutral perspective from a higher neutral perspective on, okay, you're experiencing grief. What is it you're feeling? Oh, my dad's coming up. My husband's coming. Okay. What does he have to say to you? Those types of dialoguing things. It's like, maybe fill in the blank on whatever traumatic experience happened in your life, and I can help verbally, reconcile what it is that you're feeling within yourself, and to allow that to unfold naturally in your body. And it's like, if there's grief, then what would be the opposite to grief? What would be the opposite emotion to grief? Love, connection, right? Things like that. And so it's like, how can I bring that love and connection into the healing and be that neutral space for that to start to unfold?
Yeah. I was going to answer gratitude.
And absolutely.
And for me, in losing children, I'm not grateful that I lost my children, right? But I would not, even if I was told prior to having children, you're going to have them for a short period of time and you are going to lose them, I would not give up the time that I had to not have the pain, right? So the gratitude for the time that I had was a huge, it was a huge spiritual journey, obviously. And just, and the word gratitude can sometimes be a trigger. When you have so much pain in your life, you're like, no, I'm not going to be grateful for that. But reframing, what are you grateful for? Not minimizing the pain, because the pain is still there.
Yes.
But all of that is energy.
Yes.
And this is what people, mental health is energy. I mean, it's spiritual. It's and things get blocked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have a spiritual mentor, and she would say, if you release that energy, that means there's a void there. So let's think about ways we can fill that void. So gratitude would be the best example, right? So I released all these trapped emotions, the fear, the anger, the grief, and now there's a void there where the fear, grief, and anger was. So what do I fill that in with? My teacher would just say, well, just connect to light, connect to source, and then just allow that high energy to come into you. You could connect to gratitude, whatever it is that helps you fill that void after it left you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way you say that. I often say, with trauma, you process and release. With grief, you process and cherish.
Yeah.
But let's talk about trauma. and how energy, we talked about the book, The Body Keeps the Score. This is like,
It's a big one.
There's science in it. It's not woo-woo, right? It's very clearly, this is science. And the very difficult things that you have experienced have a imprint in your body.
Yes.
And so when you release trauma, what do you fill that with? Like, is there specific techniques around that, or?
So like, what are you asking? Like, what is the energy that I fill myself with after I release trauma? And I think that's going to vary for everybody, right? And it depends on the type of trauma, which chakra was connected to it, and so if there's maybe, let's just say fear is connected to the root chakra. So if I'm afraid and I don't feel safe in my environment, like I'm getting beaten, I'm getting, I don't feel safe where I'm at, there's too many drugs, whatever it is, right? And that means my root chakra, my chakra of safety, is going to be blocked. And so what I can do is say, hopefully get out of that environment. That's the first step, right? Our environment does affect the way we go throughout our world. So, first things first, but then once you're in that safe space, you can allow that chakra to unwind. And then from there, what would be the opposite of fear would be safe, or an energy similar to that, right?
Okay.
There's like Joe Dispenza does a really good job. Do you know Joe Dispenza? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love referencing his work. He really is.
He's the guru in this space. Yes.
He's the guru in this space. So I read his book Becoming Supernatural, and there's like a whole list of different frequencies. The highest frequency being bliss, gratitude, love. And then you go all the way down to fear, which is the lowest. And so what we're trying to do is fill in a frequency that is one of those higher frequencies that says, okay, I feel safe now, nothing to worry about, those things along that line. And then that's an energy like that is what I would, And it depends, right?
And I like what you said with, let's just go up the chakras, right? Like, because that first piece is safety. And we talk about that a lot in mental health. People will come to us and they're in an abusive relationship, or they are unsafe, and they're trying to seek treatment for anxiety and depression. And but when you're not safe, it's hard to even begin treatment for that.
Absolutely.
So we have to replace that with safety. That is a
it's
root.
True.
Yeah.
And that's why most practitioners will work from root to crown, because it starts with safety.
Yeah.
And then we go to sacral and the energy there, and then we go to solar plexus, which is your will. That sacral has to do with your sex drive and like the way you express yourself to the world. And then you get to your heart, and then you have the higher chakras. So the throat being the way you express, your third eye being, what do I see through the BS in life? How do I see the illusion, what they call samaya?
I always say like how you
Samadhi.
Perceive the world, but it's all an illusion.
It's all an illusion. Up to this point, I didn't realize we're 99% energy. It's like, what?
All an illusion.
It's all an illusion.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that has happened to me spiritually as I've lost children is connecting with them in eternity. And one of the first things that my daughter said to me in her communication after her death was, time and space is not real. And it feels so real,
Exactly.
right? It feels like if I put my all into this life, I'm not going to see my kids for another 30 years plus, right?
Yes.
But time and space is not real. Like, it's all, we kind of joke it's all an illusion, but it's a human limitation.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there it is. And that's just the three-dimensional view, right? Because there's multiple dimensions. When you get to the fourth dimension, there is no time. Time and space are actually one, and they're in unity. And things like the wormholes and black holes, like those phenomenon that we can actually see and measure, like those are just singularities where time and space don't exist anymore. Like it's a rupture in the fabric, and that's what we're in. We're in what they call the space-time fabric, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we're floating in. This is what we go in. But when we connect within those higher realms, we start, and like I'll notice, like when I really get into those higher realms, like in a Reiki session, for example, like I can't believe an hour session felt like 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, we're already done. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's true. It's very true.
And how has this helped you in your personal journey? Like, you know, you had this experience, you started, how long ago was that you?
Yeah, 2017 was college, and then 2019 I graduated massage school.
So yeah, so from 2017 of where you're on this spiritual awakening journey, how has that helped you? One of the things, and I can tell you one of the things that I go back and forth with because I have to live in this time and space.
Yeah, we all do. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, the real pressures of real life, you own your own business, like you have to, like, you know, you can't just wake up and be energy, right? You have to. So how has that journey progressed in real world?
Yeah, wow, there's so many different directions I could go with that question. I think, you know, the more modalities I've learned, so the more different ways I've learned about my subtle body and the way I can use that, not only in my sessions, but in my day-to-day regular life. Meditation is a big one, right? And so learning about how to feel my meridians and chakras, and do I feel out of balance? You know, I can thank Reiki for that. That gave me foundational training for that. And you know, even mushrooms help me tap into the subtle energies in my body. And by doing that, I was also able to feel the subtle energies in other people. And so it's interesting how we're all a reflection to each other, and seeing like, okay, I see you through this lens that now I also have been there, and I've also, you know, like seeing life as just a reflection of your inward self has been a big part of that journey. You know, there's so many ways to go. I'm in a mystery school right now, and so there's so many other esoteric things I could get into. But as far as it relates to mental health, like the chakras were a big one for me. Meditation.
I don't have any, you know, formal training, but I have been able to learn. But I have found, like, I often get stuck in the solar plexus, and then I can't do anything above that, even when I have a consciousness around it. And so learning some of those, the chakras is kind of the initial basic thing that I think that's the easiest to learn and understand in your own body, and how your life has impacted the energy flow of those things. Is there a technique that you could teach in a group of people that kind of gives that reset? I mean, it wouldn't be a huge reset like you get with a psychedelic journey or a you know, extensive treatment, but like, is there? I used to do like tapping, emotional freedom technique. There's some things that I've done in the past. Is there something you teach with that? You
know, as far as the teaching aspect goes, not too much. My favorite technique I do for myself is the like heart coherence meditations. You might have heard of.
Okay.
Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches a lot about it, but you know, the way the foundation behind it is the heart knows, the brain thinks. And we're thinking our way through what makes sense in our reality, but the heart already knows what's best for us. If we just listen and tap in and just give it time and give it space, it will talk back. And you know, I use my heart as my navigator also. So it's like, you could go to the grocery store, for example, and be like, 2 different brands of cereal. Which one? Let's see, how does my heart feel about this one? Okay. How does my heart? Oh, this one feels good. Yeah. And that's like, you know, muscle testing and things like that. People do that too. But like, I like to use my heart. I'm a heart-centered person, heart forward.
And I think that definitely needs to be trained. I'm naturally intuitive, but I do listen to my heart. But I also listen to everybody else and everybody else's expectations of me. And so then I get this conflict, right? It's like my heart knows that this is what I want to do, but, you know, somebody says, you know, when you own a business, you need to do blah, 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 or different things like that. So I'm working on maturing that area of myself of like, you know, kind of putting the the limits on expectations while still growing. Like, I have a plan and a purpose that I want to see happen. But like stopping and listening. I just yesterday we were super stressed about, we got a new system for emailing and keeping up with people, right? And we're learning it. Let me not lie. Jada's learning it, and it just seems like it's just too much. It's going to take us 100 hours to do this one thing, like to get it going. And we sat with our web designer this morning, and he's like, well, no, don't do the automation yet. Let's just do this. And I was like, oh, I love you. Like, I could just relax and be present and not feel the pressures.
Yes.
And so finding that balance, like I said, of like, we are spiritual beings, but we are also living in this time and space. And so being present in both worlds is the challenge that I'm currently moving through.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we can't just neglect our three-dimensional bodies, right? We are here. We have jobs. We have kids. We have to eat. We have to all the things.
And you can't just go for those Cocoa Puffs because your heart felt like
because your heart,
right?
Yeah, I listen to my heart enough where I don't grab the Cocoa Puffs. Yes, and one of the things I learned in the spiritual path is we are the bridge between heaven and earth, and so we have access to all these higher angels, guides, Reiki, archangels, all these things, the esoteric things you can think of, that's all up here above your crown center. And then you also have the root, which is your connection to earth. And so when a lot of people...
I don't think a lot of people understand that because they see the picture of the chakras and they think all of them are little circles going up their body. And so, you were just talking about this, that the root chakra is going down, the energy is pulling you, grounding you.
Yes.
And the crown chakra is up.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and there's even higher chakras and lower chakras, but we don't have to get into that. Some people have 13 chakra systems, but yes, exactly. So the root chakra, think about it as your roots, and just like plants have roots connecting to the earth, we have roots connecting to the earth. So when you tap into that, and people will give and a meditation, just allow your roots to go down into the earth, connect with Mother Gaia, and think about one of my teachers, the thing about the spring green energy coming into you, and fill yourself up with that energy, and then you can go up above your crown, fill that energy above your crown, and you might notice during this process that it's hard to do one over the other. For example, if you're stuck in the solar plexus, it might be harder to go for the higher realms than it is for the grounding. And so that goes back to, doing that inner work and finding time to unlock those energy centers. The inner work, and it's a lifetime journey. I think that's where people misunderstand. They just, I'll go to an energy practitioner because I have high blood pressure. Yes.
And they do 4 or 5 sessions, and may or may not, help with the current system that they're going for. But it's bigger than that. It's about opening yourself up to the reality of this, having your own intentions, your own intuition, growing that gift that we all have to some degree. Some people I do believe are more gifted, but.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And yet we all find our gifts in our own way on our own path. And a lot of what we're trying to do in our lifetimes is we all have our own blockages. We all have our own patterns that we hold on to, whether it's the social patterns that parents said I should do it this way, therefore I still have that in my life, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is unwinding those patterns that don't fulfill your purpose, that don't serve you in this present moment. And that's been a lot of my healing that I've been noticing in the very recently. And so, no matter where it comes from, whether friends, family, social circles, it's up to you to decide how you feel about that information and if you take it on. And notice those things that come up, like, why do I think about let's say you got in a car wreck like myself, and the car is now this vehicle of death. And so you go into the car thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get into another car wreck. Take the time to heal that part within you, because the car, you are in control of the car. You can yeah, of course there's other people on the road, so that's other things, right? But like, if you don't feel safe, then it doesn't feel good. And so that's just one example of see what thoughts come up as you're in certain environments or with certain people, and notice those and see, yeah, I like the way that feels, or no, I don't. I should release that and say, oh, my car is my space vehicle. I can go anywhere with it, and I'm gonna be free, and the sense of freedom rather than stuckness. So that's one example. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about your practice. Specifically how you would work with someone with depression, anxiety, if they revealed that to you.
Yeah, of course. So if I do see it on a health history, I will sometimes bring up just, is there anything you want to talk about around that? And sometimes people will say, no, not really. It's okay. It is what it is. I'm taking medication. I'm seeing a therapist, and that's great. They have some type of help outside of my clinic, and that's what I'm trying to see, is that they have support. I'm only one person in a multitude of other options and other resources that they have. So if I do mention the energetic things, like if a lot of the postural stuff comes from emotions, and I might mention that after a session, like I think next time we could do a little bit of Reiki or craniosacral work to kind of work through some of those stuck energies, and then maybe we can see the body unwind a little bit more. But I do offer many modalities. I offer Thai massage, deep tissue, myofascial, neuromuscular, Swedish, hot stone, all those different types of cupping, and they all serve a purpose. And what I do in my practice is that I charge by the hour and not the modality, because I don't want to think about price in the terms of what I'm actually doing, because I want to be able to use hot stones if I want to. Cupping, I want to do craniosacral because that's what feels right in the moment to do. So I will tend to mix and match a lot of my modalities in one session.
I noticed that. So I came to you for Thai massage. Really love. I hold grief, pain in my my muscles and my joints, and just the way Thai massage is like this active stretching piece. But I did notice that you did some energy work. I'm not sure specifically what type when you hit kind of barriers.
Exactly. So yeah, you picked up on it. I just kind of sent a little bit of Reiki to that area, and I just said, okay. Sometimes, in my energy work sessions, do I have to pull out any stuck energy first and then backfill it with Reiki, or is it just the body just needs Reiki and support right now? And so, yeah, exactly. So I'll be in the middle of a Thai session, and sometimes cupping feels right. My hands aren't doing something that a cup feels, but it could do better. Feels like there's some emotional stuckness. There's some stagnancy here. Let's see if we can do Reiki or cranial. I like to mix and match, and I like to tailor the session to each person's individual needs.
Well, I definitely recommend. You are very intuitive and good at making it a healing practice, not just the act of massage. So
thank you.
You can find his information down in the description. And anything else, last words you'd like to share with the audience?
I just thank you for having me, Christy. It's been such a pleasure. And
perfect.
Love this conversation.
Thank you so much.